right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me once again for another Inven Global Esports Conference panel. I am once again your host, Nick Durazio, and I'm joined by none other than Joe Marsh. He needs absolutely no introduction, so I'm not going to do it. Hey, Joe, how are you doing?
Hey, what's up, Nick? How are you, man?
I'm excited. We have a lot of things to talk about, and from the looks of the Twitter comments, a lot of people have a lot of questions they want to ask you. So we're going to get into all of that fun Q&A. But before that, Joe, first of all, how have you been doing in this whole COVID situation? Our very first panel was about, God, it's crazy to think it was maybe 56 days ago, and we were just talking about how esports is doing in this quarantine. So, please give us kind of an update on how you guys have been doing. You're a leading esports org. What is your take on this?
So yeah, I mean, obviously, COVID's been really difficult for a lot of industries, including esports. We've had to cancel some marquee events. The international got pushed on Dota till next year. Our seasons have been moved online, and then they got to go back in studio for finals. But for us at T1, I mean, we've been managing the best we can. Obviously, we got the results we wanted in the spring with our championship, but for Valorant dropping, we started doing online events versus in-person events. So we've just been trying to adapt, and it delayed our move into our new HQ a bit just as we kind of finish out the year and try to be as safe as possible moving. So just trying to adapt and just find ways to engage with fans. I mean, that was the hardest part with the league season was you couldn't talk to you were playing in an empty studio or at the training center. There was no more meet and greets, no fan interaction. So we started going live after wins, like in the car or like the back of the room, or after we won, we went live from the restaurant and they presented the player with Cuz the belt. So we just try to figure out ways to engage with everybody digitally.
So, Joe, this seems to be playing to one of your strengths. Anyone that follows you on Twitter or is just a fan of T1 know that you're very active. Like you said, if you're checking Twitter, you can just answer someone's a question. Someone could just answer the CEO. So, do you think this is something that maybe your org has been uniquely pivoting towards quickly? And what do you have to do with that?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of want our guys to engage. Everyone on social, like engaging with everybody. We could do a better job for sure, and we'll keep getting better at that. For me, I just want the fans to have someone to talk to. Like if they have a question or a concern or just want to ask something, like I want them to know they can like send me a message and I'll respond typically. Because before that wasn't what we did. Like we were part of a bigger company. The CEO of SKT is not going to be jumping on Twitter. He's running a huge business. So for me, just being engaging, having fun. Esports is fun. Gaming is fun. So like, find a way to engage, have fun. I mean, even the trolls are fun to talk to once in a while.
So speaking of the trolls, what is the most common thing you get asked, or just what is the most common interaction that you get online from someone that is a rabid fan of your team?
So right now, rabid fan. Usually it's like, when he's selling the Nike jersey. When can we get Nike merch? That's a big one. Before we won the split back in November during free agency, it was like, you're the worst CEO ever. You let Coma leave and Clyde left, and that changed obviously as we won. But those are like usually the in between, or like, shut up, stop tweeting, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there seems to be a common thread of people interpreting what you do and your job as actually having to do a lot with the particular plays or maybe something that happened in match. There's so many people that immediately come to you. I mean, like, what do you think about that? This is obviously, you have no control over what the players do in game, right? And yet,
Yeah.
You get this type of stuff. I mean, do you bring it on, or
Yeah,
how do you
yeah.
feel about that?
I mean, I'm the boss, right? So I guess good or bad, I'll take the criticism, right? I mean, it has to start somewhere. I mean, I didn't tell I'm not saying, hey, pick Senna. That's not me. I'm not saying, go for Baron or go for the Drake. I mean, that's not what I do. I mean, Coach Kim is an outstanding coach, and he does a great job managing the team. They don't need me to come in there and like give them my Iron 4 plays.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty hands off on the game side. It will help put the teams together, but once they're together, it's up to the coaches and staff to run them.
Yep.
But it's like, I guess it's like a quarterback in football. Like, they get too much credit when they win and too much credit when they lose, too much blame when they lose. So it's part of the job. I don't mind it. I'd rather it be directed at me versus directing at my players. So I'm fine with it.
So you guys have been producing tons of content. Even though we're in the middle of this whole situation and LCK was on a break, you guys still managed to create tons of new content. Where did that start? What do you think was the momentum driving factor from within your organization that really made, okay, we need to start doing content quick?
I mean, we've been doing tons of content since last MSI. So like last year, we brought an in-house content team in for the first time. And we wanted to own our own content and create it ourselves, control the messaging, control the creative of it. And for us, I think creating content lets us connect with fans. I mean, the most feedback we hear about on the content is fans want to hear about like behind the scenes stuff, which we do with the locker room, which is great. They want to see gameplay or like streaming highlights. And then they want like the personal stuff, like, what Faker's doing behind the scenes at WorldCon and all that fun stuff. So we try to give them, a good mix of what they want. We have multiple channels on YouTube, and, we're doing some live streaming on Twitch now. So we're just trying to give them, little bits behind the scenes with the team. And, when we move into HQ we're actually moving in there right now, but like when we get there, we have a live studio in there so fans can come and like see us film content in person on the ground floor.
Yeah. Something that esports has often been criticized on is, it's sometimes hard to get a pro player to open up, right? It's sometimes hard to get a pro player to show off their emotion after a win, or especially after a defeat, which is in contrast with traditional sports, or maybe the more popular Western celebrities or athletes. So I can't help but think part of your perspective and what you have brought to this organization is helping that process, helping the content be a little more free. Can you just kind of speak to how that starts and how you take these players and try to make their personalities and their lives and really their profession something that everyone can appreciate and enjoy through content?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is what I never want to do is like just show up with content when we win and something's going well. I know like the first inclination is if we lose a match, especially a tough one, like don't film content, don't put anything out. Yep. I know the scene from 2017, with us losing at Worlds, there's a depiction of Faker crying, and I guess fans didn't like that, but for me, you have to embrace that because that's helped him get to where he is now.
Yep.
And Faker, he has very strong mental toughness, and he's able to compartmentalize. And he always answers the bell, win or lose. Like he's answering the media's questions. He's always picked to answer questions, and he handles it like a pro. Granted, like you're going to get the same answers. He's really good at like not giving away too much, but he still answers the bell, win or lose. And I think you have to show content, the good and the bad moments. And you're not going to harp on a tough loss and film a 10-minute episode of us losing, but there's a story behind it. There's things that happen behind the scenes that you don't see that we try to give you a glimpse of. And then there's times where we know when to put the cameras down. Last year at Worlds after G2 match, we put the cameras down, and there was no need to film it. We all felt it, and it was a time to put the cameras down and let our guys be by themselves. And we understand we have a great content team. They were a lot of them are former OGN people. They came over and they know the players really well. They know how to read the room, and we try to be like flies on the wall. We don't want to be sticking cameras in everyone's faces, but we've developed a really good rapport with the guys, and they're really starting to open up more, which is great for us and great for the content. And or you just go the other way and just bring in like your old players like Wolf, who's an absolute personality. And I'm still waiting for him to return my text, by the way. But
call out.
But
you heard it here.
But like you bring a personality like Wolf that can drive the content, and then that way Faker and Teddy and Effort don't have to do it as heavy of a lift.
So I feel as if anytime I'm ever talking to someone from T1, it almost feels like there's three people I'm in the conversation, really, and the third would be Faker. You just can't escape his impact. You can't escape his legacy. Some of us old timers, when we think that, I think a Slayer's Boxer. Boxer to me was the first player to ever like transcend. Maybe Boxer and Flash. And I bring up Boxer because I'm curious if you feel that there's any similarities there in terms of a player's kind of growth and path towards leadership. Because Faker has been demonstrating throughout his career incredible leadership. Like that's probably one of his biggest strengths right now. Where do you think that comes from? And do you think maybe similar to a Boxer, is this just something that comes with age, that comes with experience, or do you think that there's an it factor that Faker has, that Boxer has, that just puts them on a whole nother level?
So I definitely think they have an it factor. I think that's kind of something you're born with. It's either you have it or you don't. But I think it all, like the leadership stuff comes with age. Like, at 16, Faker's not expected to lead the team, but at 24, where he's the oldest in the room and the seasoned veteran, like, what he's saying carries weight because he's been through every, event or, battle there could possibly be. He's won on the biggest stages. So when he says something, it's not because he wants to hear himself talk. He's not a talker. He's telling you because he wants you to get better so we can win worlds. Like that's, it's like watching Michael Jordan's documentary Last Dance. It's a little bit like that where he's pushing you and driving you, not because he wants to push you, because he knows that you have the ability to win worlds with him. And I think leadership is something that comes with age, and I think he's done a great job. I mean, even like looking at the team and the chemistry and the camaraderie this year versus last year, everything doesn't feel as if like the weight's on their shoulders, and it's a lighter, fun environment. I think the guys are getting along great, which is really great. And Faker's really embracing, big brother role.
Yeah.
And even with Boxer, like Boxer was probably the first esports superstar.
Yep.
And when we were taking over T1, I reached out to Boxer right away, and we've had a bunch of lunches with his family and met with him in Seoul. And we wanted to find a way to bring him back as a streamer for us and just be connected with the team that he founded. And it's been really great. And then we had that video that we dropped a little bit ago where him and Faker, had a chance to meet up and just have a conversation. And that's invaluable when you have those kind of people in your org that you can just show your young players, the academy roster or some of our other teams. They can see these guys and talk to them and pick their brain.
I'm so curious to ask, has Faker ever taught you anything about leadership, or just seeing Faker operate? I can't imagine the high pressure situations he's been in. Right, I have never personally been asked to do something as mechanically intensive as play the highest level of league while all these people depend on me. It's just such a unique experience. What have you taken away, I think, from watching this player grow and learning how to build an organization and a marketing and all a brand like really around these players?
Yeah. So the best piece of advice, in-game advice he ever gave me, when I asked him, I was like, look, I'm not doing great at league.
Yeah.
What can I do? The advice is farm and don't die. And like Teddy concurred with that. But for what I take away from him is his ability to do, so many different jobs. Like his job is esports superstar, but then he's, Faker, the sponsor endorser, Faker, the owner, Faker, the teammate, Faker, the employee, Faker, the son. And he's able to kind of manage all that, and which is quite impressive given like the drain on his time. And he doesn't get a ton of free time. Even in his downtime, he's either reading a book or relaxing, or he's streaming. And it's impressive at the way he's able to juggle that. I mean, and I'm on a much smaller scale. I mean, I'm managing the company, but yeah, and I'm keeping odd hours because we're having early calls for Korea. We're having later calls at night because I'm on the East Coast. But his ability to kind of compartmentalize and not be stressed about things. I mean, I think you even saw like the difference, like when at the finals this year, where we lost some bands, and my reaction was I was upset, and I was talking about it online, and we released the video of Faker's reaction, which was he woke up from his nap. Kim told him, said it doesn't matter, we're gonna win, and went back to bed. And like that just shows you that someone had like supreme confidence in himself and his teammates.
Yeah, either supreme confidence, or, if I may, the understanding that a reaction then does not increase your chance to win, right? It's not helping the team or something like that. It's like that leadership, from the front. Man, that's such an interesting story. Speaking of hard things, I know that pretty much any team in esports would love to be working with Nike and somehow. I think that I think that that collaboration, I can't think of two cooler like powerhouses. It really is a big bold move in terms of moving esports a culture forward, and really dominating this mainstream kind of race we're all in. But I just have to ask you, how does one even start with that? How does one even start with the idea of partnering with Nike? How do you have the idea? How does that happen?
So we have an awesome sales agency called Lagardère Sports. Their managing director out in Asia. I was actually his intern when I first started working back at Comcast in like 2005. Yeah, and he moved to Singapore in 2011, and then when we first completed the transaction, we brought those guys in because I knew they were the best at what they do. They do some selling for the LEC as well, and they brokered the conversation with Nike, and we met with those guys a couple times in Korea, and the Nike partnership is not about the uniform or the merchandise or that kind of stuff. It's about what we're going to do that we haven't really launched yet. There's a piece around Project Athena, that their women's initiative, which we have a really cool piece that's going to drop this fall. It's like a contest that we're going to do in Korea. And it's also the training and fitness side, because that's really the biggest focus. Because for us, if we can extend our players' careers 2, 3, 4 years, that's a big deal. So we have the Nike training facility in our HQ in Seoul. We have access to Nike's trainers and customized workouts. And we're going to start filming content around that so fans can see our players working out and training. Faker's been working out since him and I got to go to Nike HQ in December, and ever since then he's been into like working out and figuring out ways to get stronger and stay healthy. And I know we just filmed a yoga video with him. He really liked yoga. He did hot yoga at Nike. So that's going to be great for players. Like right now, there's not a lot of lifting and activity going on, or even like cardio. So for them, now they can go downstairs, they can get a workout in, they can get a steam in if they want to loosen up their muscles, and then go upstairs. They can shower, go upstairs and play. And that's going to be a big thing for us as we continue to reach for our goals as an org.
You know what? I'm actually happy to hear about yoga in particular, because first, I completely agree that esports fitness and esports wellness is something that it needs to be talked about way more. But what I've seen in my experience, sometimes teams do talk about it, but the only way they do is like heavy weight training, or like weights in the gym. Yeah. And it always results in the same thing: a lot of excitement the first week, and then a lot of sore, like rigid, stiff bodies because everyone's working too hard. And now I've actually seen players' hands and wrists, they end up worse. They're worse now because they've been doing this thing. So I think that type of collaboration with Nike, my first instinct is that Nike has collaborated with more orgs and more brands and more artists. They probably have a very high concept idea of what it means to partner. So I can only imagine the exciting things you guys are planning that, like you said, is more than just merch. Can you give us any details about some of the stuff that's maybe higher concept that you're trying to do with Nike and your HQ?
Yeah, so on the workout side, part of the training program, at least like the first month, is only body weight exercises, stretching, things like that. Like we're not going to be throwing weights around,
Yeah.
because one, our guys need to be flexible and they need to mind their wrists and backs, right? That's like the big areas of concern. So building out customized training programs with their trainers, that's a really big initiative for us, and that's going to be something that becomes part of their daily routine. If you join T1, you know that like exercise and fitness is part of what you're doing.
Yep.
And then also too, like eating well balanced meals. Like we have a chef in house now. Gone are the days of running out to barbecue or eating burgers or like the stuff we were doing. I mean, it's not saying you can't have the occasional fried chicken. That's obviously we got to have that, but just building up their bodies to be stronger for the long run to compete at the highest level.
Yeah.
And Faker and I had the opportunity to see some of the tech that Nike's working on, and he was able to give feedback on some of this gear that they're making, for the esports athletes. And I think that's an area where you'll see a lot of collaboration with Nike, and wearable tech and things like that, because that's where the future's going. I mean, you don't have to always wear a jersey. Like you can have different kind of concepts on stage. So working on that, and then also Faker has the opportunity because of his appeal to the global audience to work with Nike's influencing team.
Yeah.
So when Faker's getting the latest drops of stuff that's not even released yet, that's pretty dope. I mean, he has his G-Dragon shoes, and he gets Jordans all the time. So that's a great opportunity for him to keep collaborating with them, and then also designing our uniforms and merch. Like we'll have our first capsule, just a couple shirts just to drop in the next few weeks. Our team here in-house designed it. Ryan Fedorov on our design team was able to design the two shirts. And then for the uniforms for Worlds and next year, we already have those concepts ironed out in terms of what they're going to look like, the look and feel, and the differences in terms of what we're wearing on top, if it's a jacket or if it's something different. So designing that process is really cool to work with Nike on.
So it's a common, I think it's a common misconception when you're talking to anyone who is a leader in the space, is that they have everything figured out. That, oh yeah, like T1, they know exactly what to do. That's why they're so good. That's why they're on top, right? But I would like to push back on that notion, and I think it'd be really interesting to hear what are some things, or what are some elements that you see maybe in other teams, in other esports orgs that you think, wow, that's fantastic. Like, what are the things that you want to improve? What are some of the goals and stuff that, because you need to keep innovating. What are some of the things that you think is on the next horizon?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think our big rival in Korea, Gen G, has done a great job with facilities. I mean, they have one in Korea and the U.S. I think facilities are important. They're by no means the end all be all, but I think you have to have a home and a flagship that you can plant your flag.
Yeah.
A lot of the teams in the LEC, competitively, analytics is a big part of what they did. So we kind of mirrored that. We took analysts from Europe and brought them to Korea for the first time ever. That data that I get to see there is phenomenal. That's going to help us in October when it matters the most. Analytics and data, super important to be able to understand your opponents, and not just the month prior to Worlds. Having information on everybody now is going to benefit us in the long run. And I think from a content perspective, there's a lot of teams in the LCS that do a pretty decent job of getting their players out there. We try to make more content for the Western market as well, and not just our fans in Asia. So we have two different channels now, so we're trying to separate that. You see a lot of good partnerships. You saw the partnership with Cloud9 they're doing on mental health. Yeah. I think that's really important. I mean, that's an area in our space that there's a lot of player burnout. There's a lot of stress on these kids every day, and I think finding a longer term solution for that across the industry would be really important. So kudos to those guys for stepping up and developing a partnership like that.
So I'm actually very very curious on some of your opinions on Burnout, which I want to ask you, but I do have to get to these fan questions.
Yeah.
I promised you that I would show you all of these questions people have asked, because if you guys don't know, I think this is Joe's favorite thing on earth. I really do believe when it comes to answering your guys' questions, he's all for it. So if you have a question now, you still have time. This panel is still going to go on. Let us know. But let me get on to one of these fan submitted questions now. Okay, obviously this is the first one, and I just have to ask it. What was your very first encounter with Faker? Now I know that you've already answered this, but I think it's just things that people want to know. What was your first impression? So maybe if you can expand on that in a way that I'm sure you've answered before, but what was your first impression?
So my first encounter with him was like a really quick after match meet and greet before the transaction was even closed. So like last year, just a quick hello and like a quick photo. I think the photo exists online somewhere, but that was my first interaction in terms of like meeting him really quick. But my first meaningful, I mean, I've had talks with him and his family, which is great. But one of my, my most memorable moments with Faker was in a bookstore in Portland when we were visiting Nike. And we were coming out. Faker loves books. He wanted to go to this bookstore. So we're in there. He's checking out books. And before we leave, he came down the steps. He's like, oh, let's go over here. He took me to the Korean language section and handed me the book that says Learn Korean. So I actually have a Korean tutor like 2 days a week now. So
really?
Shout out to Chloe on that one. But yeah, I do 3 hours a week in Korean tutoring just to learn and slowly picking up. It's hard, man.
That's a very dangerous thing to admit when you're on a panel with a microphone. You see, because every instinct in me wants to say, "All right, let me hear it," because. But I'm just saying, if the fans,
I'm saving it for the boys. I mean, I talked to them on Ka Talk, we talked there. Teddy is always funny because he's always like, I don't know what you're saying, so I just say fighting. But one of my most memorable moments with Faker is actually not with him; it's with his family. I was able to, when we were in Madrid this year, grab a meal with his entire family, including his grandmother, and just chat. Like that was the first time that they actually had a chance to meet me, and just had a really good Korean barbecue dinner in Madrid.
Nice.
And of course,
not many people get to say that one.
No, right? And it's funny because IG came in after when Duke showed up, and so that was and Faker's brother was there. So it was a really cool moment to get to know his family, his uncles and his aunts, and his obviously his dad was there. But that was a cool moment.
I mean, they must be incredibly proud. I can't even.
They are, yeah. They're super knowledgeable. His grandma knows so much about League.
Really?
Like she could be an analyst. She can give LS a run for his money. She gets up there and starts dropping her knowledge. She knows.
That's amazing. Okay, let's see. We have another question. This is actually a very good question. It's very relatable. What do you look for when hiring? I want to get into the esports industry, but I don't know what skills I should focus on. And then in parentheses, they put stats, writing, social media, branding.
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is being passionate about esports and gaming. Like being a gamer yourself definitely helps you with what you're doing. I think the industry right now, I think editing, videography, graphic design, and awesome social media skills are a must. We're hiring for a social media person right now to be the tweeter in chief for us on the West. So,
tweeter in chief, you heard it here. I think, man, there should be you should have them make a meme of this. That's the thing. If you can successfully make a meme of this interview, I mean, that's got to be good.
Well, I mean, we kind of helped everyone out by posting the photo of Faker with the whiteboard.
Yeah.
So that'll come back to haunt us down the road, I'm sure.
Oh man. Okay, cool. Here's a last question, and then I'll go back to my questions. And then don't worry, I see plenty of these. I'll get to the good ones. Hi, Mr. at Jomar. Any chances of T1 selling those T1 Law 2020 jackets? You probably hear this a lot. People really want those jackets.
I do hear that a lot. The answer right now is no.
Not a chance.
Part of it is I want to keep it special for the players. Only the league team has jackets in our org. They're world champions. You get a jacket when you're a world champ. So I want to keep that special for them. Maybe down the line, we'll look at it. But for now, I just want to keep it special for those guys.
Cool. All right, so don't worry. I will get back to more questions. But I wanted to come back to this point we were I'm talking about player burnout, right? I think even if you didn't have this Nike partnership, you come from a traditional sports background. You played sports yourself, so I feel as if this is something that you inherently like understand the mental toll. Um, do you feel that there's a big problem in terms of player burnout? And if so, who do you think is necessarily responsible for that? Is it the devs who push this esports ecosystem, or is it the esports orgs who maybe take on players without knowing the full responsibility? What do you think is the first thing that needs to change to get this turned around?
So I don't want to speak to other regions because I don't know how they. So I'll speak to LCK, and one of my biggest issues with the way we operate LCK, and this is on the team side, nothing to do with Riot. They do a great job, but the teams, the way we scrim in Korea is you get a block, and it's just like everyone has the same exact block, and you play a team for like hours on end, and that's it. There's no flexibility. So, and those blocks are at like 7 o'clock at night. So there's no flexibility to that schedule. So if T1 wants to not scrim that day, we can't. We're locked in. So unless all 10 teams agree to change, there's nothing we can do, even if we didn't like the way it was and we have players are tired and we want to change it up or go on a retreat. Once you have those scrim locked in, it's disrespectful to cancel, and I get that, but there's got to be a better way than to play the same team for 6 different maps in a row. Like it's just too much. And like if you break it up into smaller blocks or have two scrims in a day where there's one earlier, one later, that way our guys aren't streaming till 5 a.m, right? Because that's their free time is what, midnight on. So yeah, they're gonna check their messages and then Facebook or whatever. Like so like I wish that would change because there's a lot of pressure on the guys to play to win, and especially in Korea where it's always at a high, but it's also there's pressure to win in LCS, so there's pressure to win in LEC, LPL. So that's not unique to us. I just think that there's got to be a better way to practice and train, and I hope when we franchise it changes, but that's on the teams. It's not going to be on Riot to tell us how to change our schedules.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good point in saying it's on the teams. In my experience as a journalist, I've talked to so many players, like many of them off the record. They do confide huge problems with burnout. For them, and I won't say like the games or the leagues, but it has to do with they've just fallen out of love with the game. I mean, the game was great when they were playing with their friends. That's how they got so good. Like, that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand. When you become so good at a game, it's because there was once a point of pure love, like joy. Like, you love this thing more than anything, so you can put the passion in. But do you think that is inherently at odds with the job, with making it a job, with making it a professional? You have to show up, you have to scrim. I mean, do you think that is one of the inherent problems? Because you have these young kids, I mean, they're teenagers, and all of a sudden they have full-time jobs, and while also losing a hobby they love. Do you think that's inevitable, or is like how can that change?
Yeah. Well, I think too, part of the problem is it's your passion that you love playing games, and then now it's your job, and then your downtime is playing games, right? Because that's what regular folk do when they play games. I think part of the problem too is the stress. A lot of these kids are helping their families out financially, so the pressure of making their family proud and earning for their family and all that stress that goes with that. And I don't think it necessarily has to do either with the amount of content teams shoot or sponsor activities, because those are one day in 8 hours and that's it. Like, it's not like that's a big burden. But I think when you are so passionate about something and then all of a sudden it's a job, and now there's consequences to that job, and there's always someone that's younger that's trying to take your spot, and I mean, that's why, like, when Faker's 24 and still competing at a high level, it's impressive because there's always someone that's next. that's trying to be, that version of you.
Yeah, and
And
that pernicious fear is often shorthanded as the grind, right? There are people that, they fear the
yeah,
grind, but they've also kind of embraced the cult of, if I'm not training, someone else is.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
really,
But like there's diminishing returns, right? Like if I'm grinding for 12 hours straight is not necessarily a great thing, because at some point in that 12-hour span, your productivity and performance is going to dwindle because you haven't eaten, you probably haven't drank anything but
yeah,
uh, anything, maybe, I don't even know. So like there's better ways to train, even like interval training, where you go hard for an hour and a half and then you stop, take a break, and then go again. Like that's better for you than sitting there grinding it out for 12 hours. It's not a badge of honor. Like when people say, I didn't take a vacation day, it's like, that's not good. Like you're going to burn out. Like we tell our staff, like, dude, take a day, because you're not good to me if, you're burnt out and you can't come to work. Like, you got to take care of yourself. Most important.
yeah. I I hate to bring up a Faker. Well, actually, no, I should correct myself. I love to bring up Faker when it comes to talking about someone I think more esports pros should model their behavior after. Faker gets all the top. But I was once in a conversation with Faker, and he said if he could choose to marry a game, he would actually marry a League of Legends. And it seems that, like, part of what I think has driven him is he sincerely loves the game, right? And I think that's true, because when Faker started playing League, he didn't know he was going to become this figure. He played,
Yeah.
and that maybe purity of vision allowed him to focus. But that is not the current esports environment for young people.
Yeah.
The current esports environment is they see Faker, they know Faker. I want to be you, so I want to work hard. In the same way someone works hard to get graduated from a high school and get into a good college, I've met these young people who spend all their day on that grind, and it's such a hard cycle, because who am I to say, hey, don't play so much, when they have the aspirations of being Faker, of being double lift. So
Yeah.
what do you think about the reality that there are currently pros who aren't playing the game they love? They're just playing the game that's the most popular, or they're playing the game that just came out because they're trying to ride the next wave of the biggest esports title. Do you think that is a sustainable thing? Or do you think there needs to be more players like Faker who just play the game they love? And I'm honestly, because it is a complicated issue. It's hard to give this type of advice, but I feel as if you're like uniquely qualified to take a stab at it.
Well, I mean, it's certainly sustainable in the sense of jumping from game to game, because there's always the next version of a game, right? It's a copycat league, right? CSGO was the OG, it's still around, and now comes Valorant, and you're seeing a lot of people migrate towards Valorant. There's Overwatch in the middle there, Apex Legends, Fortnite. So there's always a next game. So I wouldn't, begrudge anyone who's stuck as a tier 2 CS player from jumping to change of scenery. Because at a certain point, if you haven't made it in that game, maybe it's time to look at another opportunity. But at the same time, if someone like wants to be like Faker, and he's been playing since he was young and he's found success, the difference is now there's cameras on you when you're 16, 17, 18, and Faker didn't have that as much coming up, right? Like it wasn't like it is now, where there's a 24/7 news cycle, instant reaction on social media, and everyone's critiquing you and praising you, depending on the situation. So that's what weighs on everybody, I think, more than, hey, I was playing the game too much and all that other stuff.
So I actually think that is incredibly true, and I think that way because I'm a big fan of Tetris, of competitive Tetris. I know that sounds like a complete non sequitur, but it's not. So competitive Tetris, it's a very pure form of esport, right? We all know the rules. We all know a Tetris. So there's a massive mechanical ceiling if you want to be the best. And currently, the best players are either 17, 16, very young, or they're true OGs. I'm talking, 35 to 40-year-old plus players who've been playing Tetris for a long time. And I found it fascinating to watch these two players, often in huge age gaps, play against each other. And the reason it's so interesting, because I think it's exactly what you said. The young players are very, very aware that it's being streamed on Twitch, that there's YouTube videos, that people are looking at them. That you can just tell. You can tell in the way they like react in the game. Whereas it seems as if the older players, they don't really, they don't even care. They're just playing the game. They're just doing their thing. So
Yeah.
in this world, which a young esports pro, we all know that you are more valuable if you have a high Twitter follower, count. You are more valuable as a pro if you have a high stream. How do you find that balance between caring about all the social media and all the attention, still having to focus on the game, and between having a healthy, balanced, I make content, I stream, and I'm accessible to my fans? Because you do quite well in remaining accessible.
Yeah, but the difference is I don't have to play high level League of Legends, right?
That's true.
I can be the scapegoat for our guys and the target, which I'm fine with. I would rather, be the distraction for everyone else to point at while my guys prep. And I think too, don't forget, like the Twitter stuff, that's very Western. Like in Korea, we're not, that's not as much of a thing, and which is good for us over there. But there's absolute killers up and down the solo queue in Korea. I mean, look at Cuz, who was number 1 twice and number 2 once, finishing the year as the leader on the solo queue. So there's kids you've never heard of, a 15-year-old from Ilsan who was an absolute monster. And you need a good scouting department to go find those kids, because not everyone can be Faker, and you can't also pay every single player $5 million, $10 million, $11 million. Like, you have to grow your own talent, which is why investing in academy is so important, right? Yeah. Which is why I'm so glad that Riot's making the teams have academy rosters in next year when we franchise, because you have to build the next level of talent. And the next step should be they should let us stream those matches of the academy teams, because people need to see the next version of Faker or Teddy or whoever it is.
Yeah. Speaking of academy teams, one of our fan questions is about your Valorant roster. So they're asking whether a T1 Valorant is staying in NA, or is it possibly going to Korea, and then in brackets they say as academy teams, T1 NA, T1 Korea for Valorant. Are there any plans for building teams with 6+ members for Valorant?
So no, Valorant is going to stay in NA for us. We had the opportunity to kind of pick if we were going to go in Korea or go NA. For us, we already have League of Legends in Korea. We really wanted something to put a stake down in America. So Valorant will stay in NA. We actually already have it. We haven't announced it. We have an academy roster for our Valorant squad. So we're going to run 10 men, or 10 players, I should say, on our Valorant roster. So we have the 5 on the main roster. We have a great coach, and then we had 5 on our academy roster. In Korea, our guys just finished second today in a charity event. A lot of our FPS guys are exploring Valorant right now, and we can do that up until it gets more formalized, if there's a league structure or not. So for now, we can compete in kind of both sides, but when we do have to choose, we are going to go NA.
Okay, so this kind of bleeds into another fan question. This fan has asked if there's any plans for T1 to expand their content to other languages, like Spanish, for example.
Yes, we're definitely trying to work that out. I think the next, obviously English we're doing, we're going to try a little bit of content in Chinese, and then we are going to try some content in either Spanish or Portuguese, and see how that does. It's just, we have to figure out which video we should try it on, and find someone that can speak those languages to truly translate it, because my biggest fear is the translations being wrong, right? Like, because you get like Google Translate and it's like never right. So yeah, we definitely want to try that. We have fans globally, and also I would love to try Vietnamese at some point too. I think that would do really well for us.
Speaking of branching out, do you have a TikTok, Joe?
Me? No, I don't.
So, and yet it seems as if every day I see esports orgs going on a TikTok. You see some players too developing massive TikTok brands.
Yep.
you know,
Oh, as an org, we're working on that. Yeah, no, I'm saying I'm not gonna. I mean, my little daughter has a TikTok, and she does like all the dances and stuff. But for the org, I think we are looking at it for the guys though, for the having like a T1 TikTok and doing those quick little videos and dances, because some of our guys do like to dance and sing and
yeah. You
show it
know,
off for 30 seconds.
you know, by the way, just quick shout out to the people who do make content on TikTok because it's hard. All right, I
Yeah.
feel as if the earliest social medias, we will one day define them by how brain dead they were to use.
Yeah.
Because TikTok, I mean, you're just an editor. You're just a live editor and an actor and a lip
Yep.
syncer and a dancer. It's so difficult. I tried for like 1 second, and then it really hit me. The amount of work I have to do to make
Yeah.
anything even related to being interesting. Just forget it. I'll stick to Twitter. Right?
Why is everything so chrome? Yeah, no, I watch my daughter like make her TikTok videos, and
Yeah.
it's like 55 outtakes of like, oh, damn it, like
Yep.
it's just like trying and trying. So I respect to the content creators.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, content creation in general is hard. Like whether you're streaming and creating content or doing IRL stuff, that's hard, man. Like
Yeah.
it's one, it's tough to hear your own voice and see yourself on camera,
Yep.
and two, it's tough to like edit it and cut it down and make it watchable.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned earlier about how important it is to have a scouting team, right? To have people like on your team that are constantly scouting, and I actually think that's correct. I've seen a lot of really interesting tournaments in India and Brazil. They have a very active fighting game scene there. And some of the most incredible fighting game talent I've ever seen are these Brazilian kids who are just brutal. They're so aggro. I love it. That being said, a Riot's coming out with a fighting game. Does T1 have any plans for maybe, developing some fighting game talent, really finding the next person to take fighting games by the horns? Is that something in your guys' future?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, obviously, right now we have MK Leo and Anti and Smash, and MK Leo is considered to be one of the best in the fighting game scene.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm excited for Riot's fighting game. I think, look, anything Riot does on the competitive side, they're going to do it well. So I'm certainly excited about that. But yeah, like I want like the next like superstar, like 14-year-old, like out of nowhere, just monster that destroys everybody and find them versus like buying an established OG, fighting game star.
You should look up Mexican King of Fighter tournaments. I'm just saying they take that game to a whole new level, which I really appreciate.
Check it out.
Yeah, let's ask. We got some more fan questions here. Let's see. We've asked about that. A lot of the same topics. Okay, well, here's something about your new HQ that I think we did talk about but I think I'd like to kind of stress this question. Is the
Sure.
new HQ incorporating anything special based on Nike sponsorship or tech? So I know I've seen all sorts of eye trackers before. I've seen, people with all sorts of new things to help train accuracy and things like that. Is there anything that's going to be prominent in that aspect in your guys' HQ?
I sure hope so. So when Faker and I got to go to Nike, he was put through the gamut of like tests they do for like traditional sports stars. So like the same test LeBron got.
Oh, really?
And then and one of the things they had was this video screen where it was measuring your eye, your recall, your speed, and things like that. And Faker's score on the reaction time, like in terms of like touching the screen and things like that, was in the 98th percentile. So and that's a trainer that Nike that system is what Nike developed. So we're working with them to see how we can get that in our HQ, because that hand-eye coordination and that speed and also there was a memorization one too that he killed. That's really good for kind of training your eyes and your hand-eye coordination. So I hope so. Yeah, that's definitely something we're looking at with them to bring into the building.
And also, I mean, that sounds like it would be a fantastic scouting tool, right? I mean, if you see a new prospect.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's funny. Esports has the danger, but I won't say danger because I don't really know if it's going to be something good or bad. But I think esports definitely has the potential to become real a money ball soon when it comes to
Yeah.
these type of tests. When you get this type of data, when you are able to, like you said, take one of these ladder players, and if you're able to, put them through these tests and look at their
Yeah.
scores, it seems as if that sounds like the making of an all-star lineup you can get for pretty low salaries.
But that would be great. But also too, like, and we're lucky enough that in esports, all of everyone's film is online, right? You can
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
go. If I'm interested in a player, I just go look it up, and it's sitting there on Twitch or YouTube or whoever else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we're lucky in that sense. But yeah, like, there's got to be some new and innovative ways you can scout players that gives you the leg up on the competition.
So just a quick personal question here. What is your favorite genre of game?
It depends. Like, is it right now or is it just casual? Like right now, I'm playing Valorant a lot.
Yeah.
It's fun. I like first person shooters. I think they're fun. I can spray and pray a little bit, and like, maybe I'll get a kill. But I also I like sports games growing up. I like a lot of that. It's just mundane stuff that's like unwinding versus like trying to be super highly competitive.
Yeah.
It just depends on what mood you're in and what kind of game you want to play.
So,
But I mean, like, I liked GoldenEye growing up on N64. That was a fun one. And playing NCAA football was really fun. But like for me, like with my buddies, it was always like Call of Duty, and now Valorant with all the staff.
So, the reason I asked is because the concept of esports is changing rapidly, right? Like there was a point in which people didn't even know that MOBAs existed. The top two
Yeah.
esports were RTS games, and that's about it. But now, obviously, the landscape has changed, and I'm not sure if you're familiar, but there's esports for farming simulators. There are esports and tournaments for people speed running Microsoft Word. It's one of my favorite articles I've ever written, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's so much exposure. So, is T1 interested in kind of growing, or I guess becoming part of these maybe niche esports that maybe people aren't really taking seriously because they're not the genre of the decade? But is that something, do you have a team that works on that, or maybe has some of those forward-thinking plans for esports?
So the way we kind of look at game development, it's like we look for tentpole games, like League of Legends and Valorant, and then our games in the middle are brand extensions and things that we know it's a good community we want to be involved in,
Yep.
right? That's your Smashes of the world, and
Yep.
I don't say I'm not going to get a Farmville game or like stuff like that, but I think the day that we're ready to do an augmented reality esport where you're physically doing the motions yourself,
Yep.
I think that's going to be the next big wave. Our parent company SKT has a pretty cool AR component that they have in the broadcast. So that would be really dope. If you're just like in a warehouse, like running around, like fighting zombies and punching them, and that would be pretty cool.
I've actually seen a game similar. I can't like remember the name, but it was a tactical shooter. But the players were in these little pods, and they actually had to crouch, and they actually had to hold these big guns, and it was very labor intensive because both players had a sniper, and literally the whole game he was just lying prone, just aiming, and it was just a really interesting dynamic. I've never seen that before in esports, but yeah, I think
but that'd be pretty cool. That'd be pretty dope, right?
Yeah. What do you think about a mobile esports? Because obviously
I like mobile esports. I mean, unfortunately, we were starting to look into it before COVID hit. But that's definitely something we want to expand into. It's probably the next one, other than getting into Valorant, which we did in a big way. I think figuring out a mobile game somewhere in Asia, whether that be Indonesia or China, looking at India, that would be pretty cool. I think mobile game, it's a fun way to connect with that different group of users. So definitely interested in that.
So I have two more fan questions, and then I think we have time for one more. This isn't even a question. Someone just said, please thank him for being such a nice boss. So thank you for being such a nice boss, and that they are looking
that's very
forward
kind.
to the new
That's very nice of you.
Yeah, I know, right? That's so sweet. Well, you know what? You are, Joe, you are a...
Is that my
nice
staff?
boss.
Is that one of my employees?
No, this does not. No, it just looks like someone, a Sumendra So Mendra, shout outs to you, man. That's nice to say.
Well, thank
Here's
you.
someone at Esper Jade asks, when will you get a full Korean roster for Dota 2? Or will you see any other Korean team make a Korean a Dota 2 league? So this is a huge fan of
Yeah.
T1, but they're also a huge fan of Dota 2. Is there any chance?
I mean, I guess it just depends if players are migrating in Korea to Dota. Forev, who's on our Dota team, is Korean, but he's, they're hard to come by right now. Not everyone's migrating to different games. So I don't think you necessarily have to have an all Korean roster, right? I think just because we're centered in Seoul, I think, we can be diverse and have a mixed roster. I mean, Dota is one of those games where you can even have, Western players on your squad as well. So
Yeah.
I don't think, look, we'll build rosters based on best available players. So if that means it's 5 Korean players, great. If not, we'll find the best 5 we can roll with.
Well, there you go. That's a pretty good answer. Joe, just from talking to you here, it strikes me that one of the things that you bring to your org is just energy, right? Just a sense of enthusiasm and a sense of openness. And I actually think that's really valuable, especially when it comes to esports, right? There's so many people who are trying to make something in esports, whether it's a startup or whether it's a tournament. I know so many student leaders who are starting esports clubs and things like that. So what advice would you have towards someone, they're in maybe a similar situation you've been in your life, but obviously not to the level you're at now. What advice do you have towards someone really trying to just build something great within esports?
I think you kind of have to put yourself out there. I think you have to have experience, in esports, whether it's volunteering at tournaments or, joining discords and interacting in communities. I think that's really important. And also don't be afraid to shoot your shot and reach out to somebody, right? I think a lot of the times if if you're aggressive in a good way and you come forth with a compelling case, you might get a shot. I mean, at T1, we're looking for interns right now, both in the States and in Korea, for the rising college students that are passionate about gaming, and they need that experience. And I went to a small undergrad, I got my MBA at Villanova. Like, I'm all about giving people a shot because I got a shot way back when, right? And someone bet on me, and I like to kind of pay it forward and return the favor. So I think giving people an opportunity, even if their resume they have no experience, but they have the right personality and the right, passion and drive, that'll make up for someone with a resume that's 10 pages long. So, graphic designers, editors, videographers, people in data, hit up my T1 guys. We'll
Nice.
get those resumes in.
All right. So last question before we sign off. I just love to ask this question because I always think I learned from it. What is the one piece of advice that you wish you knew when you started, but you know now? Like, what's the lesson? What's the fundamental thing that you think all of this success and also the the bad times, the low times, what have you taken away from all of these experiences?
I think the 2 pieces I think would be, fail fast and move forward off of that. And I think the more important one is kind of be your authentic self. I think don't try to be someone you're not. And for me, that'd be the equivalent of trying to mimic what some of the other CEOs are doing in the space, or how they are with their public personas. That's not who I am. So if I try to be a fraud and try to do that, it wouldn't be authentic and it wouldn't work. So just be you. I mean, don't try to be something you're not, because eventually, it's going to come out that that's not really who you are or how you operate. So just be kind of your authentic self, be true to yourself, and good things will happen.
Wow. I mean, I can't complain when the end of a panel ends with "Be true to yourself." I mean, what a storybook ending, Joe. This has been a really, really fantastic insight into how things are done at T1. Some of the awesome initiatives you have going on. So I just want to thank you for being here. I also want to thank all of the fans who submitted all of your questions on Twitter. If you're watching this live on Twitter, thank you. Please be sure to give InVen Global a follow. You can follow Joe at Joe Mar. You can follow me at Nick Durazio 3RD. Shout outs to our sponsors too. HyperX, this fantastic microphone makes it all possible for me. So thanks, HyperX. And this has been another InVen Global Esports Conference panel. Once again, Joe, thank you so much for being with us. And we look forward to the next time we can host you. Hopefully, it will be in some awesome big tournaments, and
I hope it's in Shanghai.
Yes,
to be honest.
Right? Okay, cool. Well, you've heard it here. I'll see you in Shanghai, Joe. All right, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nick.
I will talk to you next week for our next panel. Bye-bye.